Hi, I'm Yasmin, middle grade book illustrator, helping you with your art journey by showing you mine. And today we're continuing on our series of creating a book jacket, and today we're looking at the sketches for the book cover specifically. So we worked out the characters themselves. If you wanted me to make a separate video about that, let me know in the comments. With these characters, I wanted to convey a couple of ideas. I wanted to convey that they're on a journey, the cyberpunk aesthetic. There was also the version of them traveling on a train to get to the outskirts of town. There was also this idea of sentries that were in the city that were investigating and potentially keeping an eye or a watch on the city. And I wanted them to, maybe they were caught or that they were on the run to evade them. And so all of those were potential versions that I wanted to put, and so I decided to work through them in the sketching phase. When I'm working more in the sketching phase, I would write up 3 versions to offer to show the publisher so that they have an option about the direction that they wanted to go for the cover. However, since I'm writing this for my own illustrations, I decided to work through them in the preliminary rough stage. I would definitely clean up the sketches a lot more when I was going to offer them to the publisher, but since this was just for my own work, I decided to just work through it on the same page and then stop it if I didn't quite like how it was turning out, and then just decided to go into the next scene. I kept them all on separate layers at the beginning, and then as I decided to work through the ones I wanted to keep, I kind of just put them aside on a separate file. So I will show you those now in a time lapse. Let's go over. So I originally started with the 3 characters crouched over the plant. However, I originally scrapped that pretty soon, and then I decided to start working on the concept of the sentries chasing the main characters while they carry plants. I got into the original sketching phase before I started to change the angle a little so that the characters were going into the corner. Usually it's better to show characters going on a book cover from left to right to copy the reading direction, and so it prompts people to turn the page then this direction. I got to about this place where we were describing them. I decided to change the characters between they would be hiding from one of the sentries that were chasing them down, and I decided that it was going to be too squished of an illustration. For this particular version, I decided to work on a downward facing angle of the 3 characters that were on the train. I wanted to really portray the fact that she was carrying plants and was potentially being chased by those sentry machines. I then had a problem with realizing I wanted all 3 of the characters to show, and in this particular perspective, I was worried that we wouldn't be able to pick out who was the main character in this case. So I decided to change this perspective again to a front-facing view when you're inside the train, and the 3 main characters are waiting to get to the edge of town. I wanted to portray the idea that the characters were traveling towards a specific place. So one of the characters that's listening to a signal to be able to point out to the place about where they were going, that would be like the end goal over here. And then the main character would be here, and she has a plan in mind, and so her face would be a bit more stoic. And then we would have the 3rd character, which is kind of a bit more carefree, and she would be sleeping, waiting. So I started to get into the rough copy of the more cleaned up version of the characters. I wanted her to be asleep, and then I started to change her to be slightly leaned over, so she was resting on her shoulder, and the main character was looking out towards their destination. And we started working on our 3rd character over here that was directing them in their end goal over here. I wanted to show the main point of interest where they were drawing in the plants that they grew themselves, and it's going to be generating a light source on all the characters, just faintly, not as strongly as the background itself, because we are in a cyberpunk world, and so there would be a lot of lights going on. I finally decided to settle for this pose as the accepted rough copy. Usually it'd be cleaned up a pinch more than this. I would include in my sketches the tonal value, which would be considered areas of darkness, areas of light, included in the overall sketches that I would provide to the author and publisher. So those are all the sketches for now. Next time I'll go over my line art process as well as my color swatches that I was going to use during the cover specifically for the book jacket. Once I figure out all of those kinds of aspects of it, it becomes easier to work on the spine of the book as well as the back cover. So I would describe the back cover a little bit later and perhaps on a separate video. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave it in the comments. And please remember that a small step can be a big leap forward. Have a good day.